The Orient Express is famed around the world for being one of a kind when it comes to luxury, romance and scenery. Naturally, other railways have tried to run their own similar luxury experiences with varying degrees of success, including, of course, America. While the idea of a scenic railway tour through the states was promising, the service ended up suffering, not from bad hospitality or terrible travelling conditions, but, strangely, just bad luck. In 1989, a Mr. William Spann and several operators of the nostalgia Istanbul Orient Express decided to launch the American European Express. The idea was to provide first-class travel aboard several lovingly restored vintage rail cars, and what began as 4 streamlined cars soon became 2 sets of 5, all carefully refurbished to, quote, a level of elegance unseen on American rails. Each set consisted of 1 diner, 1 lounge, and 3 sleeper cars. These cars would be connected to the back of Amtrak's Capital Limited service between Chicago and Washington, D.C. The first service ran in the November of 1989, with the service initially running 6 times a week. However, this was reduced to 3 times a week in the May of 1990. By this point, the service expanded, with trips to New York following the Broadway Limited. Things were looking good when a new concept was pitched: the Greenbrier Limited. The service from Chicago to Washington would run as usual, but in association with the Greenbrier Hotel in White Sulphur Spring, catering to upscale tourists and tour groups. After a test run in the December of 1990, the service officially began running in March of 1991. The service ran twice a week and was made up of all 10 of the refurbished cars and an additional observation car added later to the fleet. The company even managed to lease their own locomotives to haul the service. Things were looking up until an accident in the July of 1991, where the train collided with a trailer at a crossing, causing most of the cars to derail. None of them tipped over and nobody was hurt, but it did put a damper on things. After leasing some spare cars while the originals were being repaired, the Limited was running again just 10 days later. Fate, however, didn't seem to take too kindly to this, and in a poor turn of luck during October of that same year, a press preview of a planned winter service from New York to Miami struck down 2 people who were trespassing on the line. After 2 accidents in 1 year and investors getting uneasy, the American European Express services were put on hold. The service didn't begin again until 1994, when former member of the Texas House of Representatives George Pierce took over. Pierce had previously owned the Texas Dinner Train, and after selling it on, felt there was a market for an upscale train service from Texas to Branson. With the service now being redubbed the American Orient Express, it ran the Branson Limited 9 times in 1994 and a further 8 times in 1995. As the Branson trips turned out not as successful as first hoped, Pierce backed down from leading the company and T.C. Swartz's travel company, TCS Expeditions, took the reins. TCS, with the help of Amtrak, soon turned the American Orient Express into a full service worthy of the name, with it running tours such as the Great Transcontinental Journey, the Great Southwest, the Rockies and Yellowstone, and national parks of the West. More and more cars were added to the fleet until eventually the AOE had to be split into 2 separate services, with the second American Orient Express debuting in 2002. With 2 trains available, more frequent trips could be made, with journeys going all over the US, into Canada, and even a few all the way to Mexico. As nice as it was to ride in a luxury rail car through some scenic landscapes, the problem was all these amazing excursions were expensive, with some tickets costing thousands of dollars each. While that did include everything from meals to entertainment, many felt what they were getting wasn't enough to justify the price of the ticket, especially with the recession in the early 2000s. The 2 trains were eventually put back together into one big 22-car-long service. In 2006, the train was taken over by Grand Lux Holdings and renamed to Grand Lux Rail Journeys. This service continued to run up and down the states and in and out of Canada, however, many of these journeys weren't as popular as they once were, with some later trips being noted as having more staff aboard than passengers. And then in 2008, the economy collapsed. Many scenic rail tours had to put a hold on services due to the financial situation, but the former Orient Express, having struggled for so long, had no choice but to shut down operations altogether. It made its last journey in August of 2008, before ceasing operations 3 weeks later. As most of the carriages were still in good condition, they were repainted and sold on to private collectors or other rail touring companies. Overall, the American Orient Express is another tragic tale of a good idea being met with rotten luck. Had the service not suffered from 2 accidents in the same year, its New York-Miami excursions might have been enough to keep it going. No matter what you blame, be it overpriced tickets, poor route planning, barren greenback, or simply a lack of public interest, you have to admit, going from 2 accidents to a full economic crisis is certainly a run of bad luck for any company. A shame really, as having their own Orient Express experience a little closer to home would have been a welcome thing for many US rail fans. That is, of course, unless Detective Poirot decided to hop aboard. Subscribe for more.